Alrighty, we are going live. We're going live, and let's make sure that the audio is working as it should. So, yes, the audio looks like it's coming through nice and crisp, and so I hope you guys are able to hear me perfectly well. And good morning, good evening, good day, wherever you are at. Welcome to Camille's Harem, a channel for novice authors by novice authors. Because writing is an adventure, it's way more fun with friends. And we have got some fun stuff to talk about tonight. We've already got people chiming on in. We got Midnight Afton. Hello. Great to see you. Art Taya and Hannah Heaven. Hello. Thank you guys so much for popping on in. And tonight, what I want to talk about, the big thing is we got a crazy video dropped by Glitch, and oh boy, Dana is basically going to war against the House of Mouse. that is what we are getting in a week's time. I am so looking forward to the first episode of Knights of Guinevere, and because there's actually some stuff in this interview between Kevin and Luke with Dana, there's some stuff that she didn't say, which just, if you know what to listen to, if you know what you're looking for, honestly kind of kicks the door wide open for tonight's lesson, which is going to be about copyrights, because we want to avoid what happened to Dana when she worked with Disney. Because it's not just Disney, but there are other people out there who are very predatory towards new creators who will legally steal their work. And so we want to make sure that doesn't happen to you. And then, of course, we're almost halfway through the month of September. It's time to also start planning for Spooky Month, Halloween. Woohoo! So that's going to be some of the stuff that we are going to be getting to tonight. And let's see here. TV count, don't worry. You are not late. You are literally on time. Writing is way more fun with plenty of sugar. Ah, yes. Yes, hype me up on that sugar. Mimic is here. Woohoo! Hey, Tyler says there is an interview for Dana Terrace, and Glitch now has a 16.2 million subs. I know. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome to see just how far Glitch has come. And honestly, if they're able to nail the release of Knights of Guinevere, if it's a really good show, I suspect that they will start stealing even more people who feel disillusioned with Disney. They'll be able to steal more of the Disney crowd over to them. And as I said the last time that we talked about this, if they really do succeed, they are going to get hellfire from two different sides, from Disney and their supporters, and also actually from the people who really, really dislike Disney, but for more culture war reasons than just simply because Disney has ended up becoming a horrible company now. Yeah. And let's hear. Art says, yeah, she's not going to pull them punches. Oh, no, she's not. I am Omega. Bonjour. 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 Hey. So, let's see here. Shall we just dive immediately on into the fun with Dana, or is there anything that we feel like we kind of need to get out of the way, let some people maybe trickle on in just a little bit more before we tackle Dana's interview? I've got it queued and ready to go. So I just need to hear from you guys. What do you want? A little bit more banter, or shall we already start diving into the meat of tonight? Art says, this could have been a modern day Disney movie or series if Disney was still Disney creatively. I absolutely agree. And actually, interestingly enough, Disney could have had this. Just already what we're seeing here on the screen, Disney could have had this if, and this is a big if, and this is maybe a little bit, maybe this is me thinking of this one Mickey Mouse short as being too pivotal when really it wasn't. But there's a Mickey Mouse short called Runaway Brain. If you have never seen it before, you can find fragments of it on YouTube. Disney has tried to bury this particular cartoon, Runaway Brain. If you've never seen it before, Runaway Brain was basically Disney's attempt to take Mickey Mouse and carry him over into a new age of animation and make him more appealing to older audiences. And it's actually a really good short. It's really fun, bombastic, insane, dark, witty. It's honestly really, really good. But the Disney executives were absolutely horrified because the creators did their job too well, in their opinion. They thought it was a horror story on the same level as The Black Cauldron, which Disney still refuses to do anything with, even though it's a great bit of animated cinema. And so so Disney, after that little moment in the 90s, they're like, nope, we will never go this route of horror again. And even Mickey Mouse himself was actually relegated more to the background after that. So because the Disney executives were so scared of Runaway Brain, it kind of halted any opportunity for Disney to in-house create something that would have been on the same level as Knights of Guinevere. Nick says, Dana for the new CEO of Disney, replaced Bob Iger forever. We salute you, Miss Dana Queen. Yeah, Bob Iger's got to go. And also all the people he's put on the board need to go. Disney just needs new creative direction. And I got to hear all these people talking about how they got to go the same route as David Zaslav over at Warner Brothers. I have a video in the works about how, yeah, David Zaslav is not the creative genius that certain people like to make him out to be. He's not a creative. And while he is a pretty good businessman, he's also a gambler. He's actually like a really, really bad gambler. And that tendency of his is what's led to Warner Brothers getting rid of their animated wing, which is a huge mistake. Is a huge mistake because it's leaving so much money on the table and it's allowing indie creators to step in and again just dominate. These indie productions are awesome, and they're going to end up being, I think, way bigger than the mainstream ever expected, because the main studios are no longer engaging in animation. That was their playground. That was their sandbox. And they've left it. Art says, Zaslav was a good step, but not what the industry completely needs. Yeah, no, we need someone in all of these studios saying, there's not infinite money. Please trim back the budgets. And if something looks like it's going to bomb, maybe we shouldn't do it. Like, have some common fiscal sense going on. But you also need creatives. You need people who are creative leading these studios while being checked and countered by the fiscally conservative people, because that will actually allow them to wed the best of both worlds into something that should be pretty good. Hopefully speaking. All right. Hans says, am I explaining why we don't have an epic Mickey 3 video game? Yeah, Mickey just got relegated over to Kingdom Hearts, which Kingdom Hearts is great and all, but yeah. Come on, Disney, you could have done more with Mickey. And Arts, thank you so much for your compliment right here. Good work on your Cruzy video again, man. I really think you hit all the points that need to be hit on an unrelated note. Hey, thank you so much for bringing it up. And if you guys could spread the word of the latest Cruzy video, I would love to see it rival the other two big Cruzy videos I've done and be up there at like 25,000 views. I don't know if it's going to get there, but that would be awesome if that was the case. Tyler Goodman says, Hazbin Hotel Season 2 teaser has been released. Maybe you should check it out. Yeah, I actually haven't seen that one yet. I know I was recently looking up some stuff about Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss, but I haven't seen the newest teaser for it. All right. Let's see here. Catch up here. And it says they no longer into adding dark stories in their media. They rather play it safe. Yeah, or at least we have got Kingdom Hearts. Hey, Luna Hicks is here. Woo! Great to have you here, Luna. And Tyler Goodman says, Greg Chips. Oh, I know what you're saying right here. Yeah, Greg, the voice of Beast Boy, got fired because of his Parkinson's disease diagnosis. Yeah, no, I saw that. He's been discriminated against because of his diagnosis, and yeah, I think that's really sucky, especially because, like, for instance, if you want a really good comparison of someone who has done well with their Parkinson's disease, the guy who voiced Milo Thatch, and now this is so bad. I'm just so bad with names. Milo Thatch, voice actor, pretty famous dude. There we are. Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox has been dealing with Parkinson's for years. And already, while like it was very noticeable, like with his shaking, his inability to do certain things, he still voiced Milo in Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Just because you've got Parkinson's doesn't mean that you don't have skills. And the voice is a very powerful and good skill that isn't immediately affected by Parkinson's. And I should know because my step great grandfather on my dad's side had Parkinson's for years, and it was only until later that it was very, very hard to understand him. So yeah, it's just so dumb, so dumb. All right. Well, I think 12 minutes of lead into is good enough. Let's dive into this interview that Luke and Kevin had with Dana and start figuring out what we can glean from this little silly interview. Because while it might not seem as though a whole lot has been dropped in terms of lore, we're already given some excellent information about what to expect, and we get some insights again into how Disney is still wielding a blade over Dana's head. Because when Dana doesn't say anything, it's not because she doesn't want to. It's because she actually can't without paying serious reparations to the House of Mouse. They would be able to legally rob her blind. So, to this.
What about it?
What's it about?
Watch the trailer.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to an interview with Dana Terrace about Knights of Guinevere. Hello, Dana.
Hi.
What is it about? Tell us.
I just gotta say, I would absolutely love to go to wherever they are at. Not so much to pedal around on the Swan. I really, really don't like using these kinds of boats. Just put me on a rowboat. I am totally fine in a rowboat or in a kayak. But going out onto one of those little mini railroads with the trains, oh, absolutely. Put me on all day, any day.
Tell us a bit about it.
It's about a lot of people who are just trying to make their lives better and getting caught up in a giant conspiracy trying to do so.
And it's in space.
It's in space and a theme park. It's filled with robots and gore, and I feel like I'm doing it a disservice right now.
Okay, so this comes back already to one of our previous writing lessons. Remember the whole how do you pitch a story? What Dana gave us was already pretty good. This will immediately get people interested. You've got, what is it about? It's about people on this theme park world in space who are just trying to make their way through, and by getting involved with these robots, they uncover a greater conspiracy. There's gore. Okay, got it. Of course, there is a far better way to actually tell people what this show is about. Dana and Glitch have already made the decision to hold back a lot of details. So it makes sense that they're not actually going to tell us more about the plot or the characters. That's just the way that it is. But you do need to have in your head just a better way of pitching your story to people. This interview is going out mostly to Glitch fans who are already excited for whatever this show is going to be. But if I were to show this to someone who is not acquainted with Glitch Productions, who's not acquainted with Dana Terrace, and I showed them this, they might be interested, but not necessarily sold on what Dana is pitching right here. So again, something for all of us writers to consider, and it's all about the practice. It's all about the practice, how you pitch your story to other people. Dana comes out of Hollywood, where you tailor a pitch to the studio or the individuals from that studio. You're not presenting to everyone. So as a result, your pitch, which you memorize, is only directed to just a small handful of people. Dana, in that environment, would absolutely be unused to just talking about her stories to other people, which I know sounds weird to most creatives, but if you've ever watched Dana in other interviews, and it's not just that Dana can be a bit of a funny odd duck, but that it's just something that she and many others in her profession are not used to just telling literally everyone about their story, because that's not the way that Hollywood operates. If Hollywood wants your story, they hand it off to other people in their marketing department who do all the talking for you. Meg says, and Gilbert Gottfried was literally blind, and yet he was still one of the most legendary actors, comedians in Hollywood. He had a disability, but that didn't stop him from doing what he loved. I didn't actually know that Gilbert Gottfried was blind there at the end. Yeah, no, he was awesome. Absolutely. What an iconic voice. Hey, and ISO's here. Great to have you here, ISO. All right, so continue. And let's see here. Let me actually go back. I think I might have missed something else because I kind of went a little bit on a tangent right there about the pitch.
So Knights of Guinevere.
What about it?
What's it about?
Watch the trailer.
Good answer.
Yeah,
watch that trailer. I remember when that was the very first thing that any of us saw. Like,
hey everyone, welcome to an interview with Dana Terrace about Knights of Guinevere. Hello, Dana.
Hi.
What is it about? Tell us a bit about it.
It's about a lot of people who are just trying to make their lives better and getting caught up in a giant conspiracy trying to do so.
And it's in space.
It's in space and a theme park. It's filled with robots and gore, and I feel like I'm doing it a disservice right now.
All right. So we got it. So again, we've got our confirmation of our basic pitch. And so we just now know, okay, these are the people that we're going to be following. We're going to be following the people at the bottom of the rung, mostly, who are just trying to make it through in this cruel theme park world. All right, lots of robots, lots of gore. We've reinforced the psychological thriller aspect. Welcome to Dana's version of Disney Cyberpunk.
From what I've seen, it's like Evangelion meets Ducks. Behind
That's
me.
Exactly right. Like to come up with any story. I was pissed off one day, and this became a cathartic release. I brought the idea to my co-creators, Zach Marcus and John Bailey-Owen, and we came up with the rest of it.
Okay, so already right there, everyone's got their own way of being inspired, what causes them to write and to create. Dana's being jokey right here and saying, "Oh, just like any other time, I was really pissed off one day, and the story came to me." Based on, so here's the thing: this story, she already started working with Glitch shortly after Disney finally let her go. Something you need to understand about Disney: when Disney axed the Owl House, Dana wasn't shown the door. She still had a contract to serve out with Disney. If her contract could not be filled with working on the Owl House, her contract would be filled by working in meaningless positions on other productions. effectively, here you go, here's your meager pay, shut up, you're not allowed to say anything until your contract is out and 10 years have passed. That is the situation that Dana was in, and that, like, imagine this. You want to quit your job, and your job has basically told you, guess what? You're fired. But you know what? You still need to serve time with us. True, you're getting paid, but you're effectively fired. Like, that would suck. That would absolutely suck. And this is where that rage and anger is coming from. And the people that she had on her team, these are people who are from that same realm, who know the injustices of working with a company like Disney. It says, Harry Elson did the same thing with I Have No Mouth. Yes, when that anger just hits, sometimes that's a great spot for a story to be born from. I have never completed any story that I started writing because I was really angry. And that might just be me. But I can understand for other people if that kind of just anger and loathing empowers you to tell a story, then by golly, by all means, go and do.
What are you pissed about?
Oh man. A lot.
That's fair. Yeah, we are turning.
Okay. So he's like, so what are you pissed about? And she's like, oh, a lot. She's legally not allowed to say. And I know that sounds absolutely bonkers and insane, but one of the things that you need to know about the Disney Corporation is that the Disney Corporation views bad press, bad news as the worst poison that they could be forced to ingest. And so if you sign on with Disney, if you even pitch a story to Disney, you are actually under contractual obligation for a certain amount of time to not say anything about what your meeting with Disney was like. And on top of that, Disney even says in the contract that you have to sign just to pitch your story to them, that they are legally allowed to copy your story and steal it from you. Yeah, that's messed up. And we're going to get into that a little bit more when we start talking about your copyrights, your rights and freedoms as a creator. Disney skirts around all of the laws by basically having their own ironclad contracts that if you agree to them, you have legally signed away your rights. Dana, when she was younger, comes from this whole group of incredible artists and creators who jumped on board with Disney, thinking that Disney would be their ticket to the big times, and Disney took full advantage of them. And so this is the situation that she's in. And I guarantee she wants to talk about what happened. She literally cannot. Yes, ISO, as I says, always read the fine print. And TV Ken says, I think we need a lawyer to look into these contracts. Amen, we do. If there was any way that I could get my hands on one of these contracts just to show you guys what's all in there, I would absolutely do that. So you'd be like, okay. Let's start breaking this down. Let's understand what Disney is doing to you, because there's still so many people who want to work with Disney because Disney has the power to make things happen. If you wonder why do people still keep going over to Disney, it's because Disney moves mountains. Even with their tarnished current reputation, Disney's a powerhouse. And that's why when I get people who comment on my video from like 2 years ago about Glitch destroying Disney, they're all like, but Disney's still standing. I'm like, yeah, because Disney is a conglomerate superpower. Glitch will not burn Disney to the ground, but Glitch will take Disney's lunch money and make Disney look like an absolute fool. Meg says, yikes, these contracts truly are slave contracts. Miley Cyrus went through something similar when she tried to break off her contract with Disney. Hence 2013 and Wrecking Ball. I did not know that Disney played a part in the whole Wrecking Ball fiasco. I knew that there was some other like personal matters for her, but you know what? I can absolutely believe that because yeah, she would have been on contract still with Disney under Disney's control to a certain extent, even in 2013, because of the time that she signed on with them as a child actress. That is bonkers insane. But this is the kind of predatory stuff that Disney has done for a long time. Dana will not be allowed to speak her mind fully on what happened with the Owl House until the 2030s. I mean, we're getting there. We got another 5 years and plus some to go. But yeah, that's the situation that Dana finds herself in. It's awful. Disney will burn Disney to the ground. Yeah, Disney's doing a fine job of burning itself to the ground right now. And he says, yep, Disney moves mountains and other corporations. Yeah, and it's because of their legacy and their incredible access to loans, to credit, and they have massive control over other studios. It's why they're a conglomeration. All right, so continuing on. Actually, let me pull this back a little bit.
Zach Marcus and John Bailey Owen, and we came up with the rest of it.
What were you pissed about?
Oh, man. A lot.
That's fair. Yeah, we are turning the wrong way. This is going to be most of the video. It's not turning. What can you tell
This
us
is why I
about
hate those kinds of boats.
It's a giant theme park floating in the sky. It's got rides and attractions you can't even imagine. The park is not as thrilling as this ride, I'll tell you.
All right, so we've got... All right, I go away for a few minutes and you went on vacation? Yes. I like to go on vacation to places. Like out to wherever these guys are. I want to know where they're at. So we now get some confirmation from what we saw in the trailer about what's underneath where we saw the tugboat go with the labs and everything. We now know that they are under the floating theme park. And that the floating theme park has a bunch of really creepy old labs going down into the ocean. Yeah, that is super creepy, super suspect. Again, we don't really know what's all involved there, though it seems as though they were brewing or producing the blood for these Guinevere robots or for other things. Who exactly knows? But yeah, so we now got full confirmation. Giant floating theme park. And we are over a creepy ocean, and even though it looks all amazing, as Dana says, it's not as cool as being the theme park where they are at. Probably because the theme park for Guinevere is just absolutely awful. Kind of reminds me of a place called Storyland. Oh, where have I heard that? Storyland. My mind is absolutely blanking. I'm Omega, the anti-Laputa, aka the embodiment of Miyazaki's various things on his crack list. I'm Omega. I love that. I love that you put that in there. And actually, that reminds me, I need to get started here real soon on a video about Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, because that is one of the greatest steampunk movies ever made. It does not get enough recognition, and for crying out loud, Miyazaki created one of the greatest steampunk worlds and then gave us Nausicaa's story. I don't want Nausicaa's story. Okay, sure, it's great and everything, and I know that's what he wanted to focus on, but dang it, I want the war between all of these different kingdoms. I want the old guy's story of the guy voiced by Patrick Stewart. I want his story because he's absolutely amazing. Anyways, continuing on.
It's all centered around the mythos and the canonical story of Princess Guinevere. And her story is very loosely based on Arthurian storytelling, but sorry, I'm getting so distracted.
Yeehaw!
I worked for big mainstream studios for about 10 years.
Okay, so and that's how we actually got a really good bit of lore insight. that the Guinevere that we're going to be seeing in the show, while she is loosely based off of Guinevere from the Arthurian legends, we can't exactly rely on the Arthurian legends to inform us about Guinevere in this particular story, but rather we're going to have to pay attention to the lore of Guinevere within the show, within this theme park. And I think that that is really, really cool, because that means that we're going to have to be on our tippy toes, paying attention to as much information as possible, and really just soaking in the show. That's what I'm expecting. And Dana has already done this before with the Owl House, that there's a lot of information communicated to you, not through the spoken word, but through the set pieces, through the setting, through background conversations. I think that that's how she's going to try to communicate a lot of her world building in this show. And that is a true strength of visual storytelling. When you're able to combine all the elements together, you can communicate so much information without bombarding it on your to your audience through just the main characters. Ame says, I recommend the manga if you want more, though it's through Nausicaa. I didn't know there was a manga for Nausicaa. I'll have to check that out. Oh, man, yeah, to return to the steampunk world of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Oh, yes, I want to do it. All right, so someone just replied to a comment I made 4 years ago on a Deltarune video where I said Noelle was a red herring, and someone replied, are you sure about that? Yeah, it's a little bit late. That's funny. Mick says, Lord Yupa, the sword master, you mean? Yes, Lord Yupa, that's his name. Then yeah, I agree. He's an excellent character too. It would be cool to hear more of his story. The world of Nausicaa, including Nausicaa herself, is incredible. Yeah, no, the whole world of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is amazing. I would love to get like a full series of Nausicaa that goes completely against Hayao Miyazaki's vision for any of his stories. I think he would immediately have a heart attack and die if someone said, "Hey, we're going to turn one of your classic movies into a streaming series." Yeah, he would not stand for that. And you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay with that decision. I just wish I could have more Nausicaa. Okay, continuing on.
And now I don't, and I'm enjoying myself quite a lot.
Actually, that's a good question. Is making this show different to your other shows?
Oh, hell yeah. I'm having fun.
How'd you find us? Rather, how did I find you?
Okay, I actually want to point out something here. When she's like, oh, hell yeah, I'm having fun. Dana is not excellent at giving interviews. Again, a little bit of an awkward duck. And that's absolutely fine. Some of my favorite authors are absolutely awkward turtles. But just great creators and fun to talk to. One of my best experiences was being able to have a one-on-one conversation with Brandon Mole at Phoenix Fan Fusion. But what I want you to actually kind of pay attention to in the back of your mind as we continue watching this is that Dana actually becomes way looser and way happier as this goes on. Yes, I know that it was edited together. Like, I get that. I absolutely get the power of editing. But you can actually see as this goes on that Dana gets far more comfortable. When she had to do interviews under Disney's watchful eye, Dana was not happy. Dana would hide. Dana would say very little. She would let other people speak for her. Dana being out herself in front of the camera, having a more loosey-goosey conversation with two goofy brothers really, really says a lot for how far she's come as a creator and personally. And that's something that I actually do feel needs to be applauded for her. I really, really like seeing this. This is very healthy for her.
You DM'd me on Twitter.
That's how I find everyone. I basically reached out to her on Twitter and I was like, hey, we like making cool shit. You make cool shit. You want to make cool shit?
Yeah, you basically pitched it as, do you want to do whatever you want? And I was like, yes.
Knights of Guinevere, which we also call COG, is quite different from anything you've made in the past. Is there a reason for that? Has it always been a show you've been wanting to make, that kind of show?
It's not like a show that I've had lying around for 10 years. It's something that I completely made up on the fly during my free hours during my last job. But it's
yes, at Disney. Again, inspired by her hatred and loathing and anger at the House of Mouse. Now, let me again address something I've talked about before when talking about murder drones. And that is that the creators of the shows, Murder Drones, The Amazing Digital Circus, Knights of Guinevere, and The Gaslight District, these showrunners are given creative freedom. But Luke and Kevin are still basically their bosses. It's their money and their people that they are giving over to these showrunners to do their thing. But basically what it is, and this is I think the way that Hollywood needs to run again, is that the producers say, okay, tell us your story. The story is told to them, and they then say, that sounds amazing, and that sounds like it could be very viable. What is, and then they start talking about money. How much do you need to make it happen? Yikes, that's a huge price tag. What if we gave you this price tag instead? We want to see your vision come to life, but we need to make sure that we will get a return on our investment. And so it is in exchange for this money, we want to have a guarantee that your story is going to be the best that you can possibly make it. And the way that Glitch approaches this is that they basically say, we feel that the best way to get great results in production is to give more creative control over to the showrunners. So while that sounds to the outside as if Dana can do whatever Dana wants, that's false. Dana can do what Dana wants to do for her story, but Dana is held responsible for the money that she's been given by the producers. She's held responsible to meet with her crew regularly to ensure that the story is coming together, that it will come out in a reasonable time. Glitch allows themselves to be a little bit more loose with their release dates in order to ensure good quality. But there are still mandates that are being sent to the director, in this case Dana, saying, hey, how are things going? We need updates. What do you need from us? Are you staying within budget? Fantastic. Continue doing what you're doing. And if she's not, then Luke and Kevin have to step in and say, Dana, what's going on? How can we help to make sure that this project goes through the best way possible and doesn't destroy us? And that is a far healthier approach for producers to take. The problem is that current Hollywood producers fancy themselves creatives when really they aren't, and get way too involved in the process and basically demand for directors, showrunners, and writers to create what they have in their head rather than doing the work themselves.
In the realm of subject matter that I've always wanted to work with, I love thrillers, I love horrors, I love psychological dramas, especially doing it for an older audience. I can really sink my teeth into some nasty stuff.
The cameraman's behind us. You said psychological thriller, horror genre. Is that something you've always enjoyed?
Yes. Ever since I was 4 and I watched Alien.
You shouldn't be watching Alien when you're 4, Dana.
Oh, well, talk to my mom.
All right. Inspiration comes from all places. I'll be honest. I'll be absolutely honest. I have a dinosaur character in my Legend of the Ten Lords books, a Velociraptor, because as a kid I watched The Land Before Time and Jurassic Park, loved both movies, and so for so long throughout my life I've been always like, there's this Velociraptor character, and I finally got to put him into a book. Sometimes the stuff that you come up with as a kid, you want to see it come to life. Now, as Dana said, this is not a story that's been hanging out in the back of her mind for 10 years now, but the inspiration has been. And I really like to see her talk about that. I would love to hear more in the future from her. Then it says, I do wonder what would happen if Disney ever shuts down. Like one day Disney decides to completely shut its doors, give up, and the House of Mouse is no more. What would happen then? That would be a very dark day indeed, because that would be an entire conglomeration just dying instantaneously. And it would be absolute chaos because they would get torn apart by people who want to own different aspects of the Disney Corporation. But if Disney ever gets to the point where they have to start shutting stuff down, it's because they've driven themselves into the ground. Something that's not talked about enough, even by pundits who don't like Disney. Disney is literally $100 billion. You heard that right. $100 billion in the hole for Disney Plus. Now, granted, thanks to the theme parks, which rake in a fair amount of cash, they are able to put that against the debt of Disney Plus. But if you ask Disney Plus to pay for itself, it would take Disney Plus literally decades at a high cost to even get close to start paying off the debts incurred just to make it happen. And what this actually means then is that Disney does not then have all this cash that they can continue to throw at other projects. They have to start taking out other loans. They have to try to boost their stock and get people to invest heavily in their stock. That's the only way that Disney can keep the machine going, which is why Bob Iger actually tried to move Disney away from entertainment and get more into the realm of acquisitions and technology. Because he, looking at the books and how under his management they were spending, Disney would actually implode under its weight of debt. And that is insane. That is insane to think about. So, Mimic, if you want to know whatever causes them to shut down, it's because they have $100 billion of debt that they have to wipe out. I'm Omega. Well, me and my brother saw Ghost in the Shell at SAC in third grade, so I could relate. All right. I didn't get to see Ghost in the Shell until I was an adult, so I obviously got to see it through completely different eyes. Watching Braveheart as a kid, though, will do something to you. Like, dang, I want at least half of that $1 billion that Disney has. Please and thank you. I know, same here. Disney, give me that kind of money, and I guarantee I can give you something that people will enjoy. I absolutely could.
Fair, valid. What is a Knight of Guinevere?
It's a metaphor.
Spoilers.
For...
Oh, come on, man.
A lot of emotion influences your art and a lot of your past experiences. Would you say that's like a running theme throughout Knights of Guinevere?
Yeah, I think it's a running theme throughout any artist's art. You start with a feeling, you try to grab onto that feeling, whether it comes from your head, your heart, your...
This image to me, it just seems so ominous because of that flippin' collar right there in the center.
stomach, and you wrestle it out of you like a worm that's buried itself into your skin.
What can you tell us about Gwen? That was very well timed.
That's about as much as I can say. She's
a princess?
She's a princess for Park Planet. She's a fictional princess. It's pronounced Guinevere, not Guinevere or Guinevere or whatever. It's Guinevere. We're just simplifying it.
Luke, do you have any questions to ask Dana?
All right, so there we go. It is, if people, for whatever reason, if there are people who actually didn't know how to pronounce Guinevere, we now know Guinevere. Oh, Park Planet. That's a name. Yeah, that's a name that Bob Iger would come up with. It's absolutely on the nose, not inspiring or inventive at all. I mean, you couldn't even come up with, and here's a name that's not under copyright. It's called Avalon. Oh, the magical, mystical world of King Arthur. Or you could call it Camelot. The Camelot lot. Okay, Hey, really? Let's hear. Can we come up with a better name than Park Planet? What? Yeah, you know what? I think that even in Space Jam, they had a better name. Space Jam. The Mars Park was Moron Mountain. Say Moron Mountain sounds better than Park Planet. Or I can take the Grunkle Stan route. So what's the name of this theme park? This theme park is called Gimme All Your Money and Be Amazed. Wow, that sounds awesome.
Dana, I'm a big fan.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
That's our question, Luke.
Oops.
The style, I think, is absolutely beautiful. The Knights of Guinevere team is absolutely incredible. You have some of the most talented people I've ever seen on that crew. What inspired the art of Knights of Guinevere?
I don't know, man. We just made what looks good.
I'm going to hijack this interview. When we first started,
All right. So, hey, TV Count, welcome back. What'd you miss? Me being pedantic as I overanalyze what Dana is saying. So I honestly like her response as far as the artwork goes. Where does it come from? Sometimes you honestly don't know where this information comes from. This information, where the inspiration, there's the proper word. Sometimes you never know where this inspiration comes from. Sometimes you never know what really birthed this. Like, you can see similarities between what you're coming up with other works that have existed. Maybe maybe my subconscious was just kind of picking and choosing. Sometimes stuff just comes to you and you're just like, wow, okay. For my book Bleed, Steam, and Steel, that literally just kind of came out of nowhere one day while I was watering in my backyard. There was no Neon Genesis Evangelion inspiration. I hadn't just been watching a steampunk movie or reading a steampunk book. I hadn't just played BioShock, which there's actually originally there was a lot of BioShock elements in the original Bleed, Steam, and Steel, which then got edited out as I refined the story. But yeah, sometimes just inspiration hits you and you start coming up with something, you create something, you're like, this is neat. And it's just genuine inspiration, personal creativity. You don't always have to say, yes, this came from this other thing, because sometimes it doesn't. And that's A-okay. In fact, that's sometimes some of the most beautiful kind of storytelling, the most personally rewarding. Nick says, I love the name Guinevere. It's such a beautiful, magical name. It's the perfect, quintessential name for a storybook character. God bless anyone who's named Guinevere in real life. All right. Now, Guinevere is a pretty beautiful name. It brings back memories of King Arthur, at least the spirit of a medieval storytelling. Yeah, but in a modern setting. And man, medieval stories of betrayal, of conspiracy and whatnot are just intense. If you want some great conspiracy stuff, look into the stories of Florence and Milan. Whew! Those two Italian cities are insane.
I went to Dana. She had all these wonderful artists in mind right off the bat, and she just brought them all in. And she's like, Kevin, I want to grab all these people and just let us do some shit. And I'm like, okay. And then they did. And it is one of the most beautiful shows I've ever seen.
So, what I love about them bringing this up, Dana pilfered Hollywood of talent for this show. That what was just said right there, that's code for we stole the best artists. And that's something that hasn't just been done by Dana, but Olin Rogers has been talking about doing that as well. He has been going to a lot of the big studios, and the moment that some of their best artists get fired because they're just shutting stuff down, Olin has been like, I want you. I want you. I want you. I want you. Indie animation is helping to save people's jobs. It's not as steady or as protected as the jobs that Hollywood presents, unfortunately. But it's money all the same. It's a job all the same. It's some kind of security, and I absolutely love that Glitch is reaching across the pond and across mediums from 3D animation to 2D animation to allow people who have been set aside by Hollywood to have another chance doing what they love. So when I saw this part of the interview, it confirmed something I already believed, and I was just like, yes, I love it. But as Art says, it can't pay as much either. Exactly, yeah. Indie animation can never pay as much as a true powerhouse studio can, or even a smaller accredited studio. But it's a job, and it's a chance to continue using your skills. And I think that for many artists that, yeah, they would rather do that than just kind of be like, well, I guess I got to do something that I don't want to do just to pay the bills. Then he says, also brings me back to Guinevere and the Jewel Riders. If you know, you know. Unfortunately, I don't know. Comicraft says, I checked, and it seems the wife of King Arthur is called Guinevere. Yep, exactly right. Guinevere, the wife of King Arthur. And just a moment of another tangent right here. You know what? Since who knows how long this tangent's going to go on, let me just pop back on over here to Knights of Guinevere footage. Dang it! You know what? Lancelot stealing away Guinevere from King Arthur is one of the stupidest things that has ever happened in medieval fiction, and it was done by a fanfic OC. Lancelot is not an original Arthurian knight. He was created by a French writer who really, really, really wanted to steal the Arthurian legend from the English, and rather than focusing on King Arthur and his closest knights, make it all about Lancelot and then Galahad. Galahad actually being one of the more traditional knights. But he's like, yes, Lancelot, the womanizing, chivalrous knight, and Galahad, the stuck-up prick and prude. Yes, that's what the Arthurian legend is all about. Arthur's just a doddering old fool in the background because he's British. Oh, Lancelot, when used properly within a story, is a great character, but Lancelot in the Arthurian legend is just basically there to steal Guinevere away from King Arthur and basically make Arthur look weak and pathetic. So that way Arthur is then encouraged, not by any sort of darkness, but by his own shaming of his manhood being insulted, to do all the stupid things that then lead to the downfall of Camelot. Oh man, you know what? You know what? Sometimes fanfic OCs just really ruin it. Says we need a better union for indie animation. Yes, we do. Glitch in many ways has kind of provided not necessarily the union, but the network for indie animation. Art says, I can't pay as much either, given that I have rather limited budgets as a startup. Exactly. Tyler says the only thing that indie animation gets money is to buy merch for other people. Yeah, a lot of the money for indie animation comes through the merch, which is allowed Glitch to do what they're doing. Lancelot gave Black Knights a bad name. Lancelot is a fan OC and a self-insert all rolled in one. Oh, Chaucer. If I remember it right, very little of the Arthurian legends are original. The oldest documents about Arthurian legends to date were a bunch of battle reports that said little more than King Arthur fought this at that guy and little else. And that's honestly though one of the things that makes King Arthur so interesting as a historical figure, because there's evidence to suggest that he was real. And what then came out of it was that the English built up this guy as this amazing king, this king that could bring peace in a time of basically warring states across England. And when the Vikings invaded and took over England. And the Arthurian legend would then also become actually a form of resistance against the French when William the Conqueror came and took England away from British royalty, or English. It wasn't exactly yet British, but away from the English royalty of that time, and did serious damage to the English culture and to the English countryside. And so the Arthurian legends actually kind of became a way of resisting, of saying, well, these Plantagenet rulers are a bunch of scumbags. They're not like King Arthur, the king who will return one day to just make this place better, because by golly, it sucks under these French kniggets. All right, tangent over. Let's get back to the interview.
Absolutely crazy, and everyone's... I can't wait for you guys to actually see this show. Seriously. We're going under a tunnel now. What's it like working in a smaller indie animation studio?
It's fun. I don't have an S&P department telling me to round off all the edges of my show.
I don't even know what that is.
All right, so S&P, the standards division. These are the same people who told Alex Hirsch that he had to have Dipper and Mabel buckle into their seats in the pilot episode of Gravity Falls, and that he was not allowed to have a joke about spin the bottle in the show. Now then, so I feel so bad for Dana, because she came in as a showrunner at kind of the wrong time. Gravity Falls got away with as much as it did because the Disney executives... Hey, yes, I just pointed that out. Oh, careful there, Lars. Oh boy, yes. If you don't know the joke, go watch Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail. But Gravity Falls got away with so much, and it did so well, and Disney did not know what to do with it. The executives did not necessarily like Gravity Falls because they felt it was against their brand, but at the same time, it got them a lot of attention, a lot of popularity. People were buying stuff. So Disney was like, okay, fine. How do we get Gravity Falls without it being Gravity Falls? Which led them then to the reboot of the DuckTales series, which was basically DuckTales, but with the characters of Gravity Falls. Whatever. And from that point on, the executives really started squeezing on the creative freedoms of their showrunners. I mean, like, these things must be on brand. Now, what's really, this is the knife getting stuck into Dana's gut and then twisted before ripping it out her side, is that Dana Terrace was hired to make the Owl House for brownie points. Disney wanted brownie points. They wanted to say, look, we have a show about gay and trans characters galore. Look at us. Aren't we amazing? Please give us all the brownie points. Give us those brownie points. Oh, as I always say, unless you have a way of converting brownie points to actual brownies, there's no point in going for them. But Disney wanted those brownie points. And so Dana delivered a show with Luz being at the very least a bisexual lead, getting into a lesbian relationship with Amity, and then we also get a lot of other characters who are part of the rainbow community, and it's a fun show. And what's great is that rather than stopping and slapping you in the face saying, "Look at these characters; they're part of the LGBTQ+ community," it just seamlessly incorporates that element of those characters. Those characters aren't gay. Gay is just part of who they are. And Disney did not like that. Because what Disney wanted, when we talk about the S&P, the standards, the procedures, the brand, they wanted flat, one-dimensional stereotypes of LGBTQ plus people to sell for brownie points. Dana didn't give them that. And so Disney started throttling her in her story, being like, give us that. Give it to us. And on top of that, Dana had pitched a far darker show, which Disney didn't want to have. And so it created this real jumbled mess. And it's one of the things that led to season 2 of The Owl House feeling disjointed. Not just the fact that the show was canceled partway through production, but that Disney really began interfering because they wanted the show to be a certain way, rather than letting the creator do what she wanted to do. And that's why Dana brings this up. Because Glitch is all about empowering the creator while also holding the creator responsible to create a good show. And so that's the agreement between them here, which it gives her far more freedom than having to work through all these middle managers who are interested in accruing brownie points for Disney rather than telling a good story or even making Disney good money. Because again, brownie points mean nothing unless you can convert them into actual brownies. And Disney has not figured out how to do that. In fact, no one has yet figured out how to convert brownie points into real brownies. All right, let me catch it right here. So Big says, maybe the guy who made up Lancelot, it'd be Chaucer, and the guy that made up Dante's Inferno should do a collab together. I'm sure they create incredible fanfic that will break Wattpad records worldwide. I love that you bring up Dante's Inferno because yes, Dante did a self-insert fanfiction of the Catholic's version of hell. I love it. Oh man, that would be an insane collaborative work. These are also the guys that claim to Alex Hirsch that he cannot use the word Kentucky because it sounds like Neffy. Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, I remember. I do remember that. It's so stupid. It was almost a fight from what I heard. This sort of thing reminds me of how Sega spent a while being super restrictive on how the comics were written, but it made sense in their case because one of the authors making a huge mess of the old Sonic comics and took a bunch of rights out on the way out the comic original characters. I remember recently watching a video about that Common Craft, about the absolute mess that Sega got into with their Sonic comics. And oh man, what a mess. What an absolute mess. Yeah, you need to have some oversight. And again, Glitch provides that oversight. The people need to be held responsible while at the same time empowering people to do what they want to do. And then having that collaboration so that way you don't run into the mess that Sega ran into. Sigh, Disney will never get their crap together. Yeah, no, not at this point. Definitely not at this point. Concraft, the whole thing is so funny given Don DeDon had a joke about making creative stuff by committee in the latest episode right now. Really? I missed that. I got to go back and rewatch the episode because I totally missed that joke. Okay, no, now I remember. Yeah, the giant robot, how it incorporated all these different thoughts because everyone's touching the nanites, the nanite cubes at the same time. That was hilarious. And now Quinta's like, I will name this thing. You are mine. I'm like, oh, Quinta. You guy. I have thoughts about him. He's definitely not my favorite character, but he absolutely serves a role in this arc and in what will come in season 3. Let's just look at the production of Avengers Doomsday. Mega budget, no finished script, shooting scenes with no finished script. Yes! Oh my gosh, it's so infuriating. And you know what's really sad? That's the second or third time that this has happened to Anthony Mackie, the actor who portrays Falcon. This poor guy is just stuck in production hell with no script. I honestly feel sorry for him. They know how to convert weed into real brownies, though. Thanks, Mimic. Sigh, all because one person. Or committee of people. Art says, Archie was apparently pretty lax back in the day of keeping paper records. They totally deserve the ruling against, given they didn't pay attention to the ball. but it sucked for Sonic fans because they lost a bunch of characters a lot of fans loved. Yeah, again, you need people who are in the position of Luke and Kevin, for instance, need to stay on top of things, which again is why I am certain that they don't just simply give Dana money and say, go forth and do. They are keeping an eye on her and this show because that is their money. They want to make sure it works. They also want it to succeed. So that means there's oversight, but oversight doesn't necessarily mean interference. It just means that you have someone to report to. And in fact, by having people that you report to as a creator, it actually encourages you to stay on the ball, to stay on schedule, so that way you don't go into a doom spiral and then not produce what you're supposed to. It's very, very good to have goals and to have someone that you are answerable to for those goals. And TV Cat says, and it's the reason why IDW Sonic has a gun to its head by Sega, and why people really hated the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics from IDW. Yeah, no, it makes absolute sense. Concraft, yeah, Quinto was super angry because he wanted to make the Gundam, but Momo accidentally made it like Buddha. Statue with a few Gundam elements. Quinto was so excited he took the Torigate fin and basically pulled off a little moment right there from Gurren Lagann with the crazy glasses that the one guy has.
It's beautiful. I can actually make something for an older audience. I don't have to pretend to be like, this is actually like Family Guy, this is actually like blah, blah, blah. I can actually just make the show that I want to make with all my collaborators, and I get to do all that with the most amazing artists I've ever worked with.
I love that for you, seriously.
Yeah, it's fun. The rabbit.
Oh, a rabbit.
Did you get the rabbit?
So let's just look how happy she is now.
It's important to the story. I mean, listen, I love my other shows, but KOG is the first time I really feel like I'm doing something genuine and without being forced to hold back. And that's the end of the train ride.
And that is the end of the interview. Thank you very much, Dana.
Thank you.
See you on September 19th for Knights of Guinevere, guys.
Hell yeah.
Woohoo! So there's the interview. Again, I'm just so happy to see Dana just looking way better, looking way happier, and doing something that she wants to do, even if the project is born out of her hatred and loathing and anger at the House of Mouse, which is, again, totally justifiable. So yeah, that's the situation. We got very little in the way of the actual story, but I think it's good to know that while it is loosely based on Arthurian legend, we can't rely on the Arthurian legend to better understand the story. We have to pay real close attention to everything that's happening in the show. And I like that. I really like that because it encourages you to really get involved, to engage with it. But we now also know, I think this is good to have, is that Park Planet, the giant park, is actually just floating over the ocean. And it would be probably a whole lot of fun to watch it crash and sink. Hey-yo! So yeah, didn't really get, though, a whole lot in terms of the story. What we basically got confirmation of the general vague plot. The team is keeping a lot of this under wraps because they want us to be caught off guard and surprised, shocked even, with the revelations of the pilot episode. And again, that's going to happen in a week. Now, a little bit of projecting into the future. Next week's live stream will happen far later than tonight's. The reason for that is I got invited to go to a game night. I'm going to the game night, at least for a little bit. But I also do want to have an on the same day reaction to Knights of Guinevere. And Knights of Guinevere premieres right when I'll be getting off of work that day. So it's not even like, oh, I can then just do it earlier. I can't because I'm coming back home from work. It's about an hour's drive from where I will be at. And then I gotta watch it. I then gotta grab the footage, get myself ready. So it means that the live stream next week will be later. Sorry if that's inconvenient to some people, but that's just the choice that I'm making. So that way I can still have the same day reaction while also going to a game night, because game nights are fun. Comicraft says, I really hope Dana's work pays out. I have seen a few creators going crazy when allowed to be fully free, only for their truly original work to turn out not as good as their less original work. And it's messed with some of them as their original works flopped in obscurity, while what they considered objectively worse remained more popular and what they were known for. And yeah, that can absolutely happen. It's good to have limitations. And again, it's good to have that oversight. It's good to have that accountability. And you need people pushing back at you. Like, not because they don't like your story, but because they want your story to be the best that it can be. And that's honestly really important. The book that I feel out of all my books that is the strongest written is Bleed, Steam, and Steel. The reason being is because that's the book that got the most attention from other people and the most feedback, which sometimes contradicted what I wanted. And I either then had to find a better way of justifying what happened in the book, or I just had to accept that's not good and take it out. As a result, the book is far better. Now then, I've got other stories that I enjoy more than Bleed, Steam, and Steel, but Bleed, Steam, and Steel is objectively the better book out of all of them because of all the effort that went in, not just from me, but from loads of other people. The more people that you have helping you out on your project, the better it can become. Not that it will, but that it can become. And a project that's got help from all different angles will end up being stronger than one that you just do by yourself with absolute freedom. Meg says, I like how they're both riding on some amusement park duck ride in the interview, considering that Ms. Dana came from Disney. Ah, yes. Anna says, I agree. Now, let's use this as a chance then to shift the gears on over to our writing lesson for tonight, which isn't necessarily about how we can improve our writing, but how you can avoid a similar situation to what Dana fell into. Because Dana's situation with Disney is not an exception. It is unfortunately the rule, especially with Disney, but other studios and even publishing companies can take advantage of you. As you guys have been bringing up here in the chat with IDW, yeah, rights are messy and can cause all kinds of problems. So let's at least have a general understanding of copyright as we go forward. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm definitely not giving lawyerly advice. Absolutely not. But rather, I want to present to you guys the general picture that you have to your own rights, to your own work. So that way, those of you who I know want to actually create something that you are going to share with other people or sell to other people, you know what you're getting yourself into, and you know what your rights and your freedoms are as a creator. Comic Craft says, reminds me of a theory I saw way back that suggested that the Star Wars prequel trilogy was worse because by that point George Lucas was the George Lucas, and thus people who should have reined him in didn't speak up. The answer is that's absolutely right. That is 100% correct. George Lucas is a great ideas man, a great world builder, and really good at plotting stuff. He's not good at dialogue. That's not one of his strengths. He's good at creating political intrigue, but he's not very good at executing it. So he needed other people there to help him, but it was his show. My family's attempt at creating a family business went through a similar issue that crashed the whole thing down. I'm sorry to hear that, Common Craft. That's really rough. As in what Dana went through, not George Lucas. And Hans says, again, true, yes. True. Yeah, you want to avoid the George Lucas approach. Be more like George Lucas for the original Star Wars trilogy. Even if that sucks sometimes, it will lead to a better product, a better story overall. Now, let us move forward. The big goal, our big goal for tonight is understand your rights and privileges as the creator of your works. You need to know what you got. So, copyright made very easy. Very easy. If it's your original idea, it's yours. No paperwork, no fuss, no coconuts. And seriously, no paperwork. No paperwork's involved. If you wish to go through the paperwork process of having a governmental seal on your copyright, well, I'll get more into that later on. But you don't necessarily need it at the beginning of your project, or even after you've published. Now then, what makes an original idea? Because this is important, and this touches on some of the stuff they were talking about with Dana. I mean, Dana's clearly ripping off Guinevere from the Arthurian legends, though Chaucer and the English are not going to sue her because Chaucer's long since dead. England's got their own stuff to figure on out, and we also have time limits for how long you can hold on to an original idea before it becomes part of the public domain. Yep, no coconuts to consider here. Now, what makes an original idea? One that comes from you. In Hollywood, there's the grim inside joke that you can rip other people's work off so long as it is 20% different. I'm looking at you, J.J. Abrams and Star Trek. But beware of this. Really beware of this. Because your fanfic, or the fanfic that you transformed into a story, is 20% different from the original creators, what they came up with. People who file for a government-recorded copyright can claim your work's rewards if you blatantly use their characters, their world, or their lore. And now what I mean by that is, so like in my Legend of the Ten Lords series, I make references to all kinds of movies and books. So I can bring up Prince Ashitaka, and so long as Prince Ashitaka is not a character that is doing a bunch of stuff in my books, I can use him. It's not a copyright infringement on Hayao Miyazaki or on Studio Ghibli, because I'm not stealing the character. I'm drawing inspiration from that character. Even if I have him like show up and like, wait, is that Prince Ashitaka? Shh, come on, man, we gotta go. Like, they see Prince Ashitaka. Whoa, cool. He does literally nothing for the story. Therefore, I have not infringed upon the copyrights. But if I were to use Prince Ashitaka as a main character, or like, let's say, no, I love Cruzy so much, I'm going to write my own book where Chris and Susie go on so many fantastic adventures and get married when they're older. Yeah, I've infringed on Toby Fox's copyright because I am literally using two of his characters from Deltarune and just basically telling my fanfic story and trying to pass it off as my own. Even if I change up all these other things, there's no dark world, I even go 80% different, I have literally stolen Chris and Susie. The reason why a book like 50 Shades of Grey ended up working was because the author changed all of the names and all of the locations in order to avoid copyright infringement, and her BDSM fanfic of Edward and Bella already changed everything else so much that unless you knew that she was ripping off Twilight, you would never be able to tell. And so that was the thing, is that she was able to publish her book because her fanfic was already so radically different, but still totally ripped off Edward and Bella, that she had to change the names of the characters and their backgrounds. So the more original that you can make your story, the more that story is obviously yours. Comicraft says, there's also how a lot of people don't understand how these laws work. There was the thing with how Nintendo made a new patent for a certain type of summoning mechanic in games, and people thought that they had patented the whole concept of summoning in games as a whole. Yep. Yeah, no, summoning as a concept cannot be patented, but how they do it can be. It's like very similar to how Brandon Sanderson has a copyright on the names of not on a name that no one else could ever use, but rather, he is so else calling. Someone else can use the term else calling in their story, but you can't say, this else calling comes from a magical spren that you bond with, that then allows you to jump from the material plane to the cognitive plane. Like, yeah, no, if you use that, you have ripped off Brandon Sanderson. So the mechanics are what is important, but you can still use the name, You can even use some of the you can even use similar visuals. Anime does this all the time. It's just that within that particular concept and context, that one thing can be copywritten. Also, a case I saw people who watched Don to Don and thought the studio had bought the rights for the chase song, not realizing the original music was public domain. I also just remember that apparently Archives of Our Own has their own lawyers for the use for the writers on the site in case copyright issues. Really? I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. But yeah, no, they're absolutely right. There's authors out there who will hunt down fanfic authors because they don't want anyone to mess around with their work in any kind of way. Fan fiction is totally fair use so long as it is not being sold for money. Then he says, hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, just make it look different so that it doesn't look like you copied it. Sure thing. Yeah, no, I have never met any kid in my 4 years of teaching who copied another kid's work and made it look so entirely unique. Never. I could always tell who cheated because they usually weren't creative enough in their alterations. So here's just some examples of, again, inspiration. It's okay to take inspiration. It's not okay to totally rip off. You've got Princess Mononoke to my book, Knights of Halicruz. Knights of Halicruz originally started off as a fanfic idea for Princess Mononoke. That's actually where it started. But you couldn't tell that now for the most part because that concept then got rolled in with too much bigger ideas. And so while especially in my upcoming 4th book of the series, I actually make reference to the original inspiration being Princess Mononoke, it's such a radically different story because, I mean, you've got world hopping, it's high fantasy, it begins to incorporate some pike and shot in the 4th book, and all different other kinds of shenanigans. Then you've got Narnia being the inspiration for Fablehaven. I would never have known unless Brandon Mull pointed it out that the first Fablehaven book is effectively The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The moment that he said that, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from. But rather than having the 4 Pevensey kids, you've got Kendra and Seth, brother and sister, and they're not hopping over to another world. They're just learning that Earth is actually way bigger than they ever imagined because all of these fantastical preserves that fancy creatures live on are basically in pocket dimensions that the rest of humanity has been magicked into believing don't exist. And so that then gives all of these fantasy creatures a huge space to live in that caretakers then oversee in order to ensure that humans don't willy-nilly run into these protected lands. There are some Christian messaging. There's some Christian messaging also in Fablehaven, but it's nowhere near as blatant as and in your face as the Chronicles of Narnia. Common Craft bases a lot. Mimic, yeah, you probably would have spotted me from a mile away if I was in your class, Mr. Lars. Yes, I've got my eagle eye on all of you little cheaters out there. Then again, I'm no longer a teacher, so I don't have to worry about this. So here's the thing. It's absolutely fine to have a story that's inspired by other people's works. That happens all the time. You just can't steal from them. That's what makes it illegal. But it's totally fine to be inspired by other people's works and create your own stuff. And Brandon Mull himself said that Fablehaven kind of started off as a fanfic of Narnia and just grew into something else. Same thing has happened with Nate's 2 of Nate's stories. They started off more as fanfics and then grew to become something else. And that's totally fine. Conquest says, I have written more, Lars. Look a bit up. Yeah, but I already got all that. About how people don't know how the law works, how they patented the summoning, but they thought how people took that as the entire concept had been patented, Don to Don with the chase song, Archives of Our Own. your family business, George Lucas. Yeah, I already got all that stuff. All right. Now then, something important to understand about your rights. Because you own it, you are the one who gets to make the calls on everything that happens with your story. Because you own it, you get to choose where, how, and when it gets published, or created, or released. You get to make the calls on merchandising and franchising. Huzzah! You own it all. You can do whatever you want. But here's the responsibility. You, since you have all the creative freedom, you also are responsible for how things will be published, broadcast, distributed, how you will manage merchandise if anything like that should happen. You become responsible. You become financially and legally liable for all of that stuff. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's very easy to make mistakes. And so because of that, and because a lot of people aren't necessarily business folk and don't know what they're getting into when they first want to publish and release one of their stories, yeah, this is the reason why publishing houses and animation studios or cinema studios exist. Why you've got comic book companies, in order to empower people to share the story that they want without making the mistakes that come along the way if they don't know what they're doing. But those companies ask in return for their help that they take a slice of the pie. And as a result, because they're taking a slice of the pie, they also begin to take some of your rights away from you in order to do what they are now contracted to do. And that's very important. Now, you as the creator, you can always get those rights back. But the moment that money is involved, you normally then have to pay out to buy it back. And some studios don't necessarily want you to buy it back, such as with Disney. Let's see here, before I start going over the content of this next slide. Isa says, if you write a story about an Italian man who gets transported to a fantasy land, Nintendo wants to speak with you. No, they want you dead. It depends on what said Italian man is doing in said fantasy land. But yes, Nintendo might be very upset. Concrete said you wrote a bit about the origin of AO3. Okay. Anyway, I wonder if Brandon Sanderson is receptive of fanfics, given at least one book of his started as a fanfic. What Brandon Sanderson has said about fanfics is that fanfics are fine, but he personally doesn't understand why people would write a fan fiction when they can write their own stories. That is what he has said on the matter. That was like 5 years ago. Maybe his opinion has changed, but that was the last word I heard on fanfics from him. I imagine that is why there are so many legally distinct Superman clones. Yep. Nick says, one thing I noticed is that during the months of August, September is when so many things get published or released. Music, albums, comics, series, movies, TV shows, books, stories, etc. Yeah, say there are certain times where they're like, this is the moment when we will just unleash everything. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it's kind of the last month to get stuff out there before the holidays of Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's kind of crush everything. And because there's already very specific seasonal releases for that time, that other things that are not seasonal might just get crushed going up against the seasonal material. That's probably why September is a big time to just unleash everything and release it all. That would be my guess, but I don't know for certain. Concraft says, also fun fact, apparently Thanos is heavily based on Darkseid. Yeah, I've heard that. An editor saw the original design and literally said, if you're going to rip off a new god, then rip off the cool one. Oh boy. Yeah, no, I heard that. I heard that Thanos is a rip off of Darkseid. And he's at least 20% different. And so they can get away with it. All right, now then. Beware what you sign away. because so this is what I learned in my experience with a publishing house. Because I had the opportunity to publish with a publishing house, but I took back my agreement with them, which I was easily able to do because there was not yet any money involved. But beware what you sign away. Publishers will ask for the exclusive rights to print and distribute your story. This means no one else can publish your book. You can't double dip to get extra bonuses from different companies, and they will be the ones to determine where and how your books are sold. So you need to make sure that you're working with a company that's got a good track record for the selling of various books. Production studios such as like Warner Brothers and Paramount and Disney, if you pitch a show or story to them or a movie idea to them, they want complete ownership of it in exchange, because they're like, hey, you've got a great idea, we'll make that happen. It's going to cost it's going to cost millions of dollars, and because it's going to cost millions of dollars, and that's our millions of dollars, we want ownership of it. So we will take it from you, but in return, you get to have inputs and a certain level of control over it, and you also get compensated far more handsomely for you giving up your rights to that particular story. So in exchange for a certain amount of control and everything else, you're allowed to then make your show or your movie. Now, something that's important to put in there is that it's not necessarily that you've given up everything, because, for instance, Ridley Scott will always maintain control over anything that has to do with Gladiator. The same with Steven Spielberg having control over so many of his shows and movies. George Lucas was paid very handsomely by Disney to the tune of $4.5 billion, because Disney wanted to buy out his creative control, because he retained that, even though 20th Century Fox were the producers of Star Wars. So your ideas are still largely your own. However, Harry Potter changed everything. And it's important to note this. Because I have not been in a studio myself and seen these crazy contracts, I don't know all the ins and outs. Again, I'm not a lawyer and I can't give lawyerly advice. But the Harry Potter conundrum that was created was that J.K. Rowling, because of her control over her books, was able to have also greater control over how the movies would be made, the merchandise that would be made. And as a result, J.K. Rowling became insanely rich. She's one of the richest ladies in the world because of Harry Potter and everything that came with it. The studios that worked with her, from Warner Brothers to her publishing agency to even Disney, all want a slice of that pie, but they can't get it because they have no legal right to her stuff, to that merchandise that she makes each and every single year. And so what happens now is that companies, and especially Disney is notorious for this, for taking all your rights in exchange for them granting you the permission with their money to make your show or your movie happen. Studios will now look at what you are offering them, and if they feel like your story could be huge and make them tons of money, they will negotiate to also have a slice of all the merchandising products made. And that's a big way that these studios make even more money, because they've learned through what happened with J.K. Rowling that if they don't lock that down and the story suddenly becomes big, they're missing out on millions, if not billions of dollars worth of income. And they also learned that through George Lucas, because George Lucas, he actually made sure that he would retain the toy rights for Star Wars. He was willing to give 20th Century Fox a bigger cut of the cinematic pie in exchange for complete control over the toys. As a result, George Lucas made his vast fortune off of toys. So there's a whole lot, that goes into these kinds of contracts, what people want to have a slice of the pie of. And you can, again, kind of tying it back to Dana and with Glitch. I don't know what Glitch makes in terms of contracts for their creators. If Liam and Dana and Gooseworks get a fraction of all of the sales made off of the merchandise of their shows. I would hope that they make a little bit of that. I don't know for certain. I just don't know. I think that Glitch might try to be fair and say, hey, like, we'll compensate you fairly for the merchandise, but they need the merchandise sales in order to make sure that the shows happen. So I don't know what's all in those contracts, and those contracts are not meant to be shared with the outside, because if other studios knew what those contracts were, what was all entailed in them, they would utilize that information to try to steal talent away from others. This is right now a huge thing going down, because Disney apparently tried to pillage and pilfer talented artists away from Netflix and Amazon recently, and which has now led to, supposedly, at least according to Doomcock, if you trust his reporting, and he's got a pretty good track record. He says that there's now an animation war behind the scenes between Netflix, Amazon, and Disney to dominate the animation industry, because Netflix and Amazon are so angry with Disney for trying to steal their talent. So that could be very interesting, because we now got a war going on, and Warner Brothers has bowed out. Warner Brothers doesn't want to have anything to do with this, and Paramount has squandered their animation division. So this means now there's only a handful of big studios left, and in the massive gaping field hole that was once a vibrant animation industry, indie animation is bubbling on up to fill that void. Things are getting very interesting right now. Let's see here. Let me take a drink of water. Yes, as Anime says right here, make him a simp for Lady Death. What if we took Darkseid, made him more purple, made him a little bit chunkier too, and made him a simp for Lady Death? 20% difference! Comcraft, I imagine getting a good publisher is a headache for newer writers. Oh, it is. The querying process of trying to get new agents or a new editor and a new publisher is just, it's insane. It's so draining. But if you want to make it big, that's honestly your best shot. Yeah, and from what I heard, Disney's Star Wars largely suffered because the sequels struggled to bring a lot of the needed money in to compensate the buyout of creative control. Yeah, supposedly Disney still has not yet made back their investment on Star Wars. Not at all, which is really scary considering how much time has passed. And again, that ties into the fact that Disney is $100 billion in the hole for Disney Plus, which is just mind-boggling. With $100 billion could fix problems in Africa. You could literally stop wars with $100 billion. You could fix the American medical system with $100 billion. What does Disney do? Waste it all on Disney Plus. Meine Güte. Arts, Disney is rather scummy that way. Amen. Comcraft, the stuff about reminded me how apparently a bunch of tech and AI companies offered a lot of money to Vidal of Nero-sama's code, but Nero is basically his hyperfixation, and dude was stingy with his personal Krabby Patty secret formula. Like, Harry Potter was truly a cultural reset. I would also say that Mildred Hubble, the worst witch, also changed the game too. That title sounds familiar, but I don't know Mildred Hubble, so unfortunately I can't comment on that. Isn't Skydance / Paramount trying to buy Warner Brothers? I just saw that, Arts. I just saw that. And that's something that I actually want to address in an upcoming video. This is a big deal. And it's going to be crazy to see if that goes through, because that makes them a monopoly at this point. which, monopolies are just not good. Monopolies are not good for business. All right, and if that comes true, does that mean that we could get some legit Looney Tunes content? Maybe, but only if Skydance Paramount believes that Warner Brothers could do anything with that. And one of the big problems is that the people in charge at Skydance and Paramount are just like David Zaslav. They don't hate cartoons, but they don't see them as a viable option for making money. And that's why David Zaslav shut down a lot of the animation projects and Cartoon Network. And not just because he didn't see it as a viable way of making money, but because he was then able to access all of the money that was saved from closing that stuff down, plus gaining tax credit from the United States by saying, hey, look, all of these projects failed. And then they get tax credit for it. And then if they sell that property, they can make even more money. And the reason why they needed to accumulate all of that money was actually to put it towards the big projects of the latest 2 years. Warner Brothers was bleeding money since 2020. And yes, I know the pandemic, but Warner Brothers was not doing well before that. They were looking to waste away $1 billion on all these different projects that were not going to do well. Not just billion. Excuse me. They were actually looking to lose around $1 billion on worthless projects with J.J. Abrams and with other people. They were going to lose so much investment, and their stock plummeted, which is why Warner Brothers and Discovery merged and tried to then get Warner Brothers back up on its feet. And David Zaslav went hacking and slashing in order to get the money necessary to bet big. Again, I called him earlier a gambler. He gambled big on some projects, some of which turned out really well, others did not. Like this year, with the projects that David Zaslav gambled on, he lost money except for with the Minecraft movie. And he's actually done really well with some movies, but all of those movies' gains were wiped out by his other bad investments. Like, he gambled big and he lost big. Just because the Minecraft movie did so well, that's the only reason why Warner Brothers' head is above water this year. It's really, really crazy. And the numbers are there. The numbers are all public. It's really kind of shocking. Okay, Comcraft gotta go. Thank you, Comcraft, so much for showing up tonight. And if you do pop back in later, that'd be awesome. Meg says, yikes, so much drama amongst these corporate corporations. And I thought Housewives of Atlanta had a lot of drama. You can get rid of all these tariffs that were placed on us with $100 billion. I know. Oh my gosh. Oh geez, so much money wasted over the years. I know, it's bonkers insane. I'm gonna make a replying to Arts. Man, I forgot about that. Now remembering that commercial where 2000s Cartoon Network's characters rated Nickelodeon. Now we're getting SpongeBob and HBO Max. Yeah. Oh man, it's just crazy. Hey, Comcraft's already back. Woohoo! So yeah, man, just the way that Hollywood is eating itself right now is just insane. It's so insane, and it's not healthy. It's not good. There are other studios that are not under the big umbrellas, but they lack the power to produce the big projects that are the massive blockbusters. Not that you need to have $200 million to make a big blockbuster, but you need the power that comes with a big studio in order to get a lot of the best talent to make excellent stuff. Now, then coming back to our copyrights and everything, because I see this a lot from other people. And it's like, okay, copyright, that's still super crazy. Should I be worried? The answer is no. Your biggest concern with copyright should be when it comes to working with other companies, or if your story becomes big enough on its own that you need to protect it. But beware, copyrights are expensive. They cost a fair amount of money, which you don't always need the government seal of approval because you do literally own what you've made. So don't worry about it so much until you start working with others to make your story come to life, if that's the route that you go. For now, focus on making a great story and making it your own. Once you're finished and you want to have you want to further protect yourself, then you can invest in the copyright protections that your government offers, which I advocate for doing, especially if you feel like, look, I've got big plans and I know I can make those plans work and I need the protection. Get the protection, invest in getting the official seal for your copyright and so forth. But just know this, because you created that work, you automatically own it. And that's what the law states, so you're covered. Don't worry too much about copyright. I've seen too many novice authors worry too much about this, and really you don't until it's time to settle down with the contract. And in that case, there's a whole lot more than just copyright going on there. You need to focus on so many other things in order to make it work out. To which, if you get to the point where you're getting a contract with any company, hire a lawyer to go over that contract with you. Please do it. I know lawyers are scary. People mistrust lawyers, but believe you me, lawyers, like, this is their thing. They love this stuff. They want to talk about it. And you're asking them and paying them to fight for your good. That lawyer will immediately become a bulldog against everyone else to ensure that your rights and prosperity are protected. So please, if you find yourself in a situation where you have a contract to work with any company, publishing house or an animation studio or television studio or a Hollywood studio, have a lawyer. It will save your bacon. And I can say that from personal experience. It was thanks to working with a lawyer that I realized I need to get out of the situation that I'm in with this particular company. And even though that means I did not have all of the benefits that came with being an accredited published author with a publishing house, I am happy that I got to go the route of self-publishing. I got to go on this particular journey, and that I've been able to maintain all of my rights. Now, granted, working with Amazon means that they have sole publishing and distribution rights to the books that I've published with them. However, they do offer a backdoor opportunity for you to work with other people in order to get your books published, not just by Amazon. So working with Amazon, even though Amazon is predatory in its own way, they don't suck the soul and life out of your works just yet. Just yet, but don't worry about that. Concrest says, I don't know how it works in other countries, but from what I heard from my father here, where I love, copyright is typically not an issue, where I live, copyright is typically not an issue as long as there is proof that you are the original creator. Exactly, and that goes for the same here in the United States. The Warner Brothers siblings also said on HBO Max 2, they left the Warner Bros. House long ago and are residing elsewhere now. Oh, man. Yakko, Wacko, and Dots. Also, welcome back, Commoncraft. That was pretty quick. So, yeah, no, it was pretty quick, but glad you could be back here with us, Commoncraft. So, that's basically my breakdown for what we got from the information about Knights of Guinevere, my insights into the interview with Dan Terrace, and basically my look right here at copyright. Just basically know this, that you are the owner until you start working with other people, and then be very careful about what you're giving away, because in order to receive the benefits and power of other studios, you have to give up something in return. When it comes to Disney, for instance, Disney is totally predatory. And so you need to be very careful. I personally, with how Disney is right now, I would never pitch anything to Disney, even if they were offering me big money. The only way that I might pitch anything to Disney is like, I don't care about this story. Here, you can have it. maybe something like Sandwich Desperados, where I'm just like, yeah, you know what, Sandwich Desperados was just a funny story that I wrote. I don't have any real attachment to it. And then I could just be all like, here, Disney, you want to pay me $50,000 and own all the rights to the show or movie based off this book? By all means, that's $50,000, and I get the network behind your back as you guys try to salvage this ridiculous story. It may be the mild sleep deprivation, but I suddenly remembered a top like fanfic in AO3. The concept is the spiciest, not safe for work Guardians of the Galaxy fanfic ever, written from Groot's perspective, written in his native language. Was it a good read? I am Groot. Oh my gosh. And when you get to the part, I am Groot, like, okay, yep, we got to the spicy part. It was shockingly spicy in the short single chapter it had, but you have to be able to read Groot's speech to understand it. I love it. Oh my gosh, that's so great. Groot, I am. Oh my god. Oh, you could take that so many directions. We shall not. Otherwise, this will no longer be a PG-13 rated channel. Groot is apparently very R-rated. Oh, yeah. The only words he can say are I and am and Groot, and specifically in that order. All right. Well, you know what? To wrap up the night, to help round things off. So Halloween is approaching, and I want to hear from you guys. Vin Diesel's easiest paycheck ever. Yeah, actually, funny thing is that Vin Diesel's a pretty good voice actor. Which is, I know sounds amazing considering that all he does is just grunt and scowl in the Fast and the Furious franchise. But I think he missed his calling. He should have just been a voice actor. Now then, I want to hear from you guys. What are some of the things that you would like us to talk about on the live streams that are spooky / Hollywood related, horror related? Are there any sort of topics or questions that you have in mind that we can talk about? Because, yeah, spooky season is a whole lot of fun. I know what I would want to talk about, but because we do these these live streams to try to help out other people, then I think it's important to hear back from you guys what you think. What should we be focusing on? Vampires and the different ways to write them. Okay. Yeah, no, that's definitely one that I've said in the past that I would do. And yeah, we got it. I need to actually do that one. Chris and Susie going to Halloween dance and Birdley spikes the punch. That would be fun. You know, I should, if I get the opportunity, I should do another Chris and Susie Halloween story. I've already done several Halloween stories with Chris and Susie. I've done one that was just some fun Halloween shenaniganery, and then one that was tied into the trilogy of fanfics, where the crazy fans of Gerson's try to then create their own dark worlds and the likes. Okay, so vampires and different ways to write them. Okay. I've had a vampire hyperfixation this last year. Like how to write a good monster. Ooh, that's definitely a good one to go in to think about. And then werewolves are people who have monster forms. All right. All right, so again, kind of writing good monsters. I really wanted to include a scene of a Greek demigoddess not believing vampires are real because Greek mythology only. Then there comes the Kujisake on a themed vampire in my fanfic. Yeah, interesting. So here's something interesting as far as at least werewolves go. Werewolves are absolutely a part of Greek mythology. Odysseus was canonically part wolf, and that was one of the things that contributed to him being so sly. But yeah, the Greeks themselves did not have a traditional like blood-sucking vampire view. Vampires are definitely, the vampires such as we know them are definitely a more Eastern, they're a conglomeration of Eastern European lore mythology that then became codified over time by people who are not from Eastern Europe. So abstract monsters as well. If Halloween had continued as an anthology series as envisioned with the third movie, what kinds of stories would we have seen? Interesting question. The difference between American horror and Japanese horror. Oh, I can already tell you that. I can already tell you one thing there, Mimic. But actually, that sounds like a great topic. The one thing is very certain. In a Japanese horror, you are already screwed. One of my best friends put it this way. She said the most important thing is the moment that you think that you're in a horror story, you need to figure out what kind of horror story you are in. And if you happen to be in a Japanese horror story, just sit down and just accept your death because you're already screwed. But yeah, no, that would be that would definitely be a great topic because they utilize very different monsters, themes, setups, cultural icons, and the likes. They're very, very different from each other. So that'd be fun to get into. Japanese horror movies are conveniently more handsome, beautiful. They're definitely very riveting. I mean, my way of putting it. American horror, blood, death, vengeful spirits. Conquest says vampiric, blood-drinking, or flesh-eating creatures are nearly universal creatures, so I thought of making vampires able to go to any pantheon in mythology-themed urban fantasy fanfic. Well, that's really cool there, Concraft. That's legit awesome. And the concept of running away and calling the police doesn't work in Japanese horror, which is horrifying. Well, it also very rarely works in American horror. Because the poor cops are just usually too incompetent. All right. So let me start making some notes here. Okay, so let's see here. Make sure I make a note of this. Halloween topics. So we've got how to write different vampires. We've got writing monsters, which includes stuff like werewolves and the likes. And then the difference between Japanese and American horror. And honestly, what we can learn from that. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. A reverse vampire. Vampire is powered by the sun. Oh, that'd be awesome. Woo! and who loves garlic. The only way to defeat them is to find garlic-free pizza and force them to eat it. When someone imagines American horror, it's Jason and Freddy. When I think of horror, I imagine Jigsaw from the Saw series. Oh yeah, say Jigsaw is definitely a different breed of horror. The more the body, like it takes body horror into the realms of body torture. I just remember an art I saw of a guy complaining about horror girl tropes, then got isekai into a horror movie as the beautiful girl that dies first without his usual intelligence level. I actually remember seeing that manga. that was something. Okay then. Awesome. So we got well, let me make sure I also make that note there of abstract monsters as well. Okay, fantastic. So this is some good stuff to that we can focus on. This is going to be fun. So, guys, with all of that then said and done, also how to write monster protagonists. Well, that's a pretty good one right there. Japanese horror: the Empress of feudal Japan fell in love with a slave and eloped with him. But during their escape, the slave was captured and beheaded in front of her. The Empress fell into a... What did she fall into? But yeah, I know that's actually pretty good. Put that in there. Making the monster the protagonist. All right. How to write a good Frankenstein story. Yeah, because there's a lot of not so good Frankenstein stories out there. Actually, Arts. Let's see here. Ooh, let me make sure I actually get the name for this one correct. Frankenstein with Sean Bean. Okay, so I don't think that the second season quite lived up to the legacy of the first season. But if you get the chance to watch the Frankenstein Chronicles, I thought were legitimately good, at least for the first season, because a lot of the horrible things that are happening that lead to the Frankenstein experiment are based in actual stuff that happened in London. And I really, really liked how they tried to tie in the story of Frankenstein and his monster with real world things that happened. So your other comment following up about the Japanese horror did not go through, unfortunately. If you could try it again, say it all depends on what you wrote. Sometimes YouTube is like, you just used a verboten word. And then they won't allow a comment to go through. It's annoying. It's happened to me when I was years ago recommending Midnight's Edge that they watch Murder Drones. I got banned from commenting in live chats for a month. It was pretty crazy. Writing book accurate Dracula. Well, that all depends on the version of Dracula. If you're going with Bram Stoker, Bram Stoker is the Dracula guy, unless we're talking about historical Dracula. In which case, then you're talking about a venge-filled guy who's destroying the Ottoman Empire. That first comment wasn't supposed to be a cliffhanger, LOL. No, but it does indeed work as a good little cliffhanger right there. Writing book accurate Dracula and how people thinking of pop culture vampires would be screwed by him. Mimic Japanese horror. Even when you close your eyes and try to sleep, you can still see the horrifying, bloody face of the ghost of woman in the dark woods. Yeah, there's just no escaping. There is no escaping anything in a Japanese horror story. I kind of so continuation right there. Yeah, sure. YouTube will also never get their crap together too. Yeah, no. At this point, they just keep descending even further. And I'm just like, who's making these choices? Concraft just reviewed how one of the new books of Vampire the Masquerade confirmed that Dracula is not only real, the events of the book happened, and every book from the past was actually commissioned by him. Dracula runs. Okay, just remembered. Okay, Dracula runs the Masquerade. Yeah, so if you're able to share the rest of your story pitch right there, that'd be awesome. All right, so we've got some topics then for spooky month. I'll start getting ready to write those, write up everything we need for that, because I think they'll be fun. If you want a fun watch for abstract monsters, then I recommend Taro Man. The whole miniseries is on Tokuzilla. Okay. Actually, Dracula was trying to destroy the masquerade. Oh, well, really? Well, Dracula, you rebel, you. And made it stronger by accident by making vampires sound fictional to the common people. Seems whatever. You all get the point. There's lore in Japanese horror and American horror is about the death. Yeah, a lot of American horror is more based around a concept, an idea, rather than a fully fleshed out story that inspired the awful thing to happen or that the characters are living through. And with Japanese horror, there is a full story to explain why this bad thing is happening. And because that bad thing is happening, well, guess what? It's already underway. You can't stop it now. YouTube doesn't like me talking about decapitation. Oh man, but hey, at least you got that word through. Man, that's crazy. YouTube censorship. Ugh. Say there's a video that I've wanted to do now for a while, but I'm like, oh man, how am I gonna get this past the censorship without it being just silly? Because I don't want it to be silly. Is a video about how storytellers are able to take scenes that are not sexually explicit, but have very strong sexual undertones to communicate something very poignant to the audience. So, like, for instance, in ReZero Season 2, there is a very, very suggestive moment when Garfield is fighting the disemboweling chick, whatever her name is, and they go hammer and tongs. And so the moment that they just start like literally eating each other, which is super gross, is silhouetted by the mansion burning up. It's really awful. And for a moment, you don't see that, like, even though you know that they're eating each other, it doesn't look like they're eating each other. It looks like they're in the throes of ecstasy and boinking, like full on. And then when you get the close-ups again with how they're holding each other's hands down, how their legs are moving and everything, you're all like, wait, did I miss something? Are these two actually like going at it in sexy fun times kind of way? And so the scene seems, with everything that's going on, like it shouldn't work. But the point of that scene is that the assassin, the assassin she uses her incredible sex appeal to throw people off, to get close to people, and then to kill them. But she never goes that far with any of her victims. And she even says, the only thing I love about people are their guts, are their insides. And then she taunts Garfield by saying, my love for you will only happen when you're dead, when I cut you open. And Garfield is all like, well, and it's like Shane, it's like, sorry for you because I only love Ram. And the thing is this, Ram wants nothing to do with Garfield, at least not that way. And so you've got two characters who are very frustrated, who finally find equals. And it's a moment where, because ReZero deals with possibilities, and you come to realize that ReZero is kind of giving you a really perverse possibility of these two characters, the only ones they could ever fall in love with are actually each other, but they hate each other. And this is the closest to intimacy that either of them will ever get. And it's really, really depressing. It's a super depressing moment in a really hyped up action scene. And so the whole point of like going into that kind of topic is that many times authors have a message that they wish to get across, and you could easily just flat out say it, but then it loses its value, it loses its punch. And because people always have such a visceral reaction to the sexy fun times, that when you then utilize that element to then tell a darker part or a more poignant part or actually a more touching part of your story, it sticks with the audience even more than if you had just straight up stated it. And so, not to say that you should be more explicit in your stories, but there's actually a way in which you can use intimacy to communicate some really heavy themes or ideas. And that's something that I would love to talk about. But YouTube being what it is, it's hard to talk about that and have your video even have your video get noticed. I personally, though, wonder if, because our channel is so small, if YouTube even cares. So maybe one of these days I'll just have to be a real rebel rouser and just just make it. Conquest says the almost entirety of Don to Don, even using a giant worm, was an improvised hose double as a dirty joke, and the whole story is a metaphor for them growing up, written very unconventionally. Oh yeah, Don to Don is definitely about that, which is then why like I've been getting so many comments lately on videos, be like, but they're children, they're just teenagers, and I'm like, okay. I understand the sentiment. We should not over-sexualize the youth. That's not okay. Definitely not okay. But they do that to themselves. And if you try to write just a purely Puritan story, it ain't any fun. The reason why the only Puritan stories that we remember are the spicy ones, like the Scarlet Letter and Goodman Brown, are because they got explicit. And again, not that you need to be explicit to tell a story. Absolutely not at all. That depends on the story that you're telling. But Don to Don is being honest with, these are teenagers. Teenagers feel certain things. They're called hormones. Those hormones cause them to do stupid things, to act certain ways, to feel certain ways. And we're going to explore that. And as you said, in a very unconventional way. Very similar to Fooly Cooley. Fooly Cooley is a brilliant story about growing up and when the hormones hit. Because when you got, now it's getting clobbered with the guitar in the very first episode. It's meant to be metaphorical for, guess what? Puberty has arrived. Bong! Everything's changed now. There is no going back. Oh, you popped a boner, and everyone can see, because he's got that growth coming out of his head, which he's super embarrassed about. And yeah, Fooly Cooley is just insane, but it's so good. It's insane how it's already September and close to spooky month again. I swear it was just yesterday when you were doing a stream on making Halloween stories last year. Time is truly non-existent. Yeah, the year's just been running by. Yeah, Don to Don's first episode had some very strong imagery about that in the darker moments. Also, Shonen is written for teenagers. People like to act as if these moments were aimed for adults and not hormonal teens. Exactly, yeah. A lot of it is geared at teenagers. And I mean, people can be upset about that. That we can say that we can. There's definitely a space to say that we tend to go overboard with certain things, and we need to be more. We need to be more sensitive to our audiences, and we can do that without compromising our vision too much either. Those are definitely some important conversations that need to be had. But yes, Shonen is written primarily for teenagers, and teenagers. And that's one of the things is that I sometimes need to remind myself of, especially in manga and anime, is that for a lot of these things that I enjoy, I know I'm not the target audience, and that the things that are happening in the show are meant to speak to a younger audience that feels and thinks a very different way than I do. That if I saw this as 15, 16-year-old Lars, I would feel very different about what I'm right now seeing. I mean, if 15 or 16-year-old Lars were to read Dawn to Dawn or watch Dawn to Dawn again, he'd probably be like, Ira's the best. Ira's amazing. And now older, more sophisticated Lars is like, Momo's the way to go. You go, Okaroon. And Romeo and Juliet, too. Yep. Yeah, that felt like 2 years ago. Yeah, and the time just all bleeds together. It's weird. Yeah, I imagine that removing those elements from the story would make Dawn to Dawn a lesser story. It is written to explore those themes in various ways, both funny and dark. Exactly. So, guys, with all that being said, thank you so much for these conversations, for these tangents, for your comments, your insights, and everything. This has been fun. I have really enjoyed this, but the non-existent time is flying by. I got to get myself ready actually for a trip out of town tomorrow to go to a book fair. I am doing some reconnaissance to get myself ready for actually future book fairs where I can then try to sell my books. So all for promoting the cause as an author. So again, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Thank you, Concraft. Good night to you as well, and to you, TV account. Man, being a teen and being a young adult as well is so awkward and weird. Yeah, yep. What about reconnaissance? We're gonna rock on as we do our reconnaissance. Mimic, best of luck to you. Yeah, keep being you and keep doing what you're doing. And Hannah, you have a good night as well. To everyone, have a great night, day, morning, wherever you are at. I'll be seeing you guys next week. Remember that next week for the live stream, it's going to be later because I am coming off of work, going to a game night, and then we will have the review of Knights of Guinevere, the first episode. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, y'all, tschüss.